Hi there, Zam here for NerdTube. These are my thoughts and spoilers of Ted Lasso Season 3, Episode 10, International Break. So I have to say that without doubt, out of all the shows that I review, this is the best one. Because nearly every episode I've reviewed so far hasn't gone below an 8. Anything which is 8 and above is excellent. This show is excellent. You would have thought by season 3 things would be dwindling down, but the clever things that's come from the writers is that this show is not fully Ted Lasso focused. Like this episode is not Ted Lasso focused whatsoever. We do get a little snippet of him here and there, but because it's international break, Ted Lasso doesn't have to manage. And we're not going to be following Ted Lasso's personal time and stuff like that. We've seen that in previous episodes. This time around, we're going to follow the supporting cast, and boy, did they step up in this episode. They were great, and they've actually stepped up in previous episodes too. They're just as interesting as Ted Lasso himself. There's so much going on in this episode. I hope I can get it all done in 10 minutes. Keely, she loses her business. She has fallen out with Jack. Jack doesn't want anything to do with her. Jack is no longer going to be her benefactor, which means that everything that Keely has in this business is going. Keely has some moments of self-reflection. She's drinking, stuff like that, avoiding people. But eventually, after a little bit of girl talk with Rebecca, who has her own adventures in this episode, Rebecca ends up being Keely's new benefactor for this business that Keely has. Sorry about that. Okay, and we also get some moments with Roy Kent as well. And I think Roy Kent and Keely are back together again. There was a nice moment with Roy and his niece, and how it almost felt like it was Roy's birthday, but no, it was Uncle's Day. And being an uncle myself, I wouldn't mind an Uncle's Day. But some presents are bought for Roy. Even Jamie Tart shows up and kind of flirts with Roy's sister a little bit. It's funny seeing all of that. Roy has to wear this unusual, flamboyant T-shirt, and he's the type of guy who likes to wear dark clothes. This shirt, made by his niece, is very bright, but in a way, this brightness kind of pulls out his personality a little bit. And then he does have a moment where, after speaking to the teacher who likes to flirt with him, the teacher who's at his niece's school, he realizes that he needs to get back with Keely. He does, after apologizing to her and saying that all the things that happened during the course of their relationship was his fault, and they kind of get back together again. We'll see how that pans out in the future as well. Sam doesn't get to play for Nigeria. Now, Sam is a great lad. He's in good form at the moment, and countries like Nigeria would have Sam playing for them in a fucking heartbeat. So it makes you wonder why the hell he's not playing for Nigeria. But we find out later on, because we have our villain of this episode, who is Akufu, the Ghanaian businessman who tried to get Sam to leave Richmond last season, or the previous, or the season before that. And he makes his return, and basically he's going to now open up a Nigerian restaurant 20 meters away from Sam's restaurant, just to fuck with Sam. And on top of that, he's also paying the Nigerian FA £20 million every international break to make sure the Nigerian FA never picks Sam in the first place. So it's, nice to know that Sam was going to get picked, but in a way, his international career is being sabotaged by this Akufu guy, because he wants to ruin Sam's life. I guess it's kind of sinister and sadistic, but he's a very rich man and he can do these sort of things. And Akufu does come back later on in this episode, and I'll bring that up in a second. I want to jump to Nate very quickly. Initially, I thought he was fired by Rupert at West Ham, but no, we realised that he's actually quit his position because he knows that Rupert's a cunt. We all know that. Rupert is a fucking terrible human being. And he spends some time at home, but his girlfriend has to go back to Poland for a little while, so he's now home alone. And he's so alone that he goes back to his parents' house and spends time there, sleeps in his old bedroom. But after a little bit of just being alone, he breaks out from his shell, goes around his house, sees some old photo albums, goes into his loft, pulls out a violin, starts playing it again, and then gets spooked by his dad. Now, Nate and his dad, they don't necessarily always get along over everything, and Nate always assumed that his dad didn't like him being a violin player, but then his dad basically tells Nate exactly who he is, that he's a genius. And being a genius, of being the father of a genius isn't an easy thing. But then we also understand maybe why Nate is such an awkward person as well, because sometimes when you're that intelligent, that smart, that you have that level of IQ, you don't necessarily become somebody who can integrate into society so well. You can be quite an awkward person, and that's who Nate is. He's a bit of an awkward person. So some of these things make sense. Canada plays Mexico. The goalkeeper Van Damme is going to be going up against Danny Rojas in international football. Now, Danny Rojas, a bit like Sam, is also a very nice lad, very happy-go-lucky, all of that. But the moment he found out that he's going to be playing against his teammate Van Damme, his personality changes. He's 180. For some reason, Danny Rojas, when he puts on a Mexico shirt, he's not the same Danny Rojas. He is a cold-blooded, calculated killer, and you see that between that. You see that in the conversations that Danny and Van Damme have prior to even getting on the plane together to go to this international match. Danny is not taking any sort of friendship vibe from Van Damme. He's shutting him out, and he's talking to, like he's almost being intimidating towards Van Damme, and it's really funny to see. I would have liked to have got more of this in this episode, because these are some of the things that I really like. Don't get me wrong, I thought everything in this episode was fantastic, but some of these other moments where we get less time, I would like to have more time with, because I find it fascinating, and it's about the football at the same time. And play people like Danny Rojas and stuff, and Van Damme, they haven't been given as much screen time as they should be given. They've had, like Danny Rojas has had that moment where he killed the dog by accident and all of that, but the reality is that he's just still a bit part player, and I would love to have got a lot more out of him. Rebecca herself has been invited to a Super League meeting with some of the other big football clubs, and that football league meeting is being hosted by Akufu, the Ghanaian businessman, and he's got all these old white owners, including Rupert being the owner of West Ham together, Rebecca being the only lady there, and he's going to be offering them more money than they could ever imagine. But then Rebecca puts these motherfuckers to their in their place and declines the offer from Okufu by basically saying, "What are you guys doing? You've got so much bloody money. You're taking away a sport that belongs to the people. You don't need any more money, and you all love football for what it is. Why are you doing this?" Obviously, this message gets through. Luckily, there's no Americans in the room, because if there were, this message wouldn't have gotten through. But because all these guys were British owners, it did get through. And Akufu himself was really pissed off. And there's a lot of lovely Ghanaian food around, and he tosses it everywhere, and everyone gets covered in it. And he walks off in a huff and a puff. Rebecca and Rupert laugh this over. Rupert actually tries to make an advance on Rebecca. Rebecca says, "Fuck off, we're done here." And I think she was kind of happy about herself, and I'm really happy for Rebecca too, because I'm glad she's not being swayed by Rupert, because Rupert's scum. He really is. And finally, we get a nice little moment from Nate again. He sends an apology letter to Will, regarding how he treated Will when they were both at Richmond, and that was a nice little moment too. And with the international break over, everyone's back together, everyone's hunky-dory, everyone's being smiley, talking about their moments. Jamie Tartt also gets his international debut for England too. There was some really, really cool moments. Excellent episode, so much packed in. An hour-long episode as well of Ted Lasso. Fucking loved it. And we'll see what happens next week. If there is another episode next week, I'm not so sure. 12 episodes in season 2, 10 episodes in season 1. I don't know how many episodes there are going to be in season 3, but hopefully we've got a couple more, because I love this show so fucking much. Another 10, baby. This show, this series, it's the best thing ever. I can't wait to watch the next episode, if there is one. Anyway, let me know what you think, and subscribe to NoTube, the greatest channel, YouTube channel that is, you never heard of. Take care. Bye bye.